Hello, hello. Just on time. Nothing like a broadcast that's on time, am I right? Sorry about the delay, everyone. I'm so sorry. Hello, Uncle. Can you speak? The stream should be live. There we go. We'll be getting the show started. If you don't see the resource pack, please relog. You'll get it on relog. Alright, I think everyone should settle down, get to their seats, and let's start the show. End code whenever you're ready.
It's that being exporting and kind of ironically saving the file. We've had many crashes saving the file because that seems to allocate memory. So the
Yes.
big things we removed was we removed support for loading vanilla assets when it starts up. And we removed a lot of the data that was used for that we removed a lot of the data it uses for animated Java's plugin mode because it wasn't useful for us during the export. And when you're exporting a song that's got 800 bones and is 6.5 minutes long, that extra little bit of data adds up quite quickly. And I believe we are off to you in code. Take it away.
Not quite yet,
Oh, not
because
quite. You got some more.
in addition to the plugins and the many modifications we had to make to a few of these, there were a few scripts needed because renaming 800 bones is no easy task. So we had to make a few scripts to handle the block bench side of things. When things such as renaming an entire tree of instruments, such as these pots here, which there are, I believe, 19 of or 18 of, each of them having something like 5 groups in them. So you multiply that very quickly to a quite annoying number of groups to rename. So renaming groups, handling data such as the tint indices, which were stored in the animated Java blueprint and could not be modified in bulk. So we had to close the file and run a script on Node to set all of that data up so that the objects that are currently glowing could glow. You might remember that if you've attended the shader panel, that these are blue if you don't have the right resource pack. This is why we had tint indices in this presentation, in this performance. And the add one to names was a pretty straightforward one, but at some point it was needed, especially for the pots, because some of these instruments were offset by 1 in their indices, and the plugin previously mentioned for setting up the song was not handling that very kindly. So I think that's actually it now.
Yes.
And now we can go to the song, and I can hand the voice to the song makers.
So, in a music animation, the song is quite important. It defines the animation's vibes through just instrumentation and structure alone. It serves the purpose as the passage or the story that the animation tells. The inspiration had always been animusic, as some of you might have picked up on. Um, Animusic. Oh, what happened? Animusic is a pair of animations released in the early 2000s, um, and not something that's really happened since. It's a very unique, one of a kind thing. If you haven't seen it already, which I highly recommend doing, Figurigamma ended up just like it, but in Minecraft. You can especially see some of the inspiration in the the little guys and the guitars that showed up earlier. Um, and that ended up becoming the case because when we were originally brainstorming the project, I had originally planned on straight up covering Animusic stick figures, which is to the left here, or my left at least. Um, and that has the little guitar guys and trumpets and flutes. But when licensing concerns came up, after all, Animusic, it's old, but it's not that old. It's still protected under copyright. So we ended up going our own direction. Um, yeah. The composition itself was quite the challenge. This is the entire composition in one screenshot. I'm not a professional producer, so I have no idea whether a normal project should look like this, so don't use this as a guide. I'm more comfortable with ambient electronic music, such as Lena Raine's background tracks for Minecraft. For an animated event, however, that just doesn't really work out. I need something more dramatic, more hype, more memorable. Um, Background tracks specifically aren't that. They're not designed to draw any attention. As such, this has by far been my most challenging composition, for multiple reasons. For one, I was limited in instruments. Uh, Minecraft only has 20 instruments, only 17 if you don't count the trumpet variants. And while note blockers have derived creative ways to reproduce other instruments, for simplicity, I decided to just stick with the sounds that we already have access to. Additionally, since the song was made to be transcribed into Noteblock, I had to make everything in MIDI. There are no audio waveforms here, which is quite a challenge when it comes to transitions or guitar, bass, percussion, all things that are typically recorded, especially since I prefer recording guitar and bass. So instead, I had to think like a guitarist and play notes on my keyboard like a guitarist. That is not something I'm used to, definitely. Um, when it comes to effects such as reverb or delay or even sustain, that's not even an effect, that is just music. Couldn't use those because note blocks don't have them. Again, note blockers have figured out ways to recreate reverb and delay and sustain, but that's a lot of work for Vizian. So I try to avoid them when possible. In the end, what resulted was 3 distinct sections, which I refer to as the regular song, build up, and then finally the quiet part. Again, these were made up just now and have no correlation with traditional composition or music theory. So, yeah. While we didn't have time in the grand scheme of things to storyboard and really plan out everything about the animation, I still made these sections with animation in mind, with the movement of instruments, instruments coming in and out, instruments coming together, and then serving their purpose, such as the cowbell. You know, it played 4 notes, but I still thought that counts. And there were quite a few struggles. When it came to actually producing the finished song, oof. I think the biggest issue that we faced during this entire event's production development, despite all of the issues with Blockbench that we had, despite the time crunch, was how long it took me to finish this song. Originally, I intended to get a demo ready for us uh, late June, so that we would have at least a month to work on everything else, the animation, the transcription, and that didn't happen. Despite having the idea of the song already in my head, the song was stuck in my head before we even started, which is uncommon for me. I've never had that happen before. Actually turning that into notes that exist in the real world was incredibly difficult. I ended up finishing the song mid-July, which gave us half a month to do the modeling and the texturing and the choreography and the transcription and the scripting and all of that in half a month because I took way too long to produce this song. Additionally, each export, which you can see right over here, each one of those took about, on average, 15 minutes to export, with the full song taking 20 minutes. So right here is about 6 hours of exporting pictured in a single screenshot. A few of these I have uploaded to my Discord server. Subtle plug. Aurora.live. Feature creep also makes its way into everything, including music. As an enjoyer of progressive rock, I had originally planned for the song to be 20 minutes long. That'd be crazy, so it did not end up 20 minutes long. And it became 12 minutes with a big heavy section in the middle, but that was cut for scope because there's no way I would be able to make a 12-minute song in this time frame. So I ended up with a 6-minute song, which even still is quite long to be animating and transcribing in half a month. I'm sure Asa and Vizian are very happy with that. The percussion especially, this is what's pictured right here in the middle. That is the epitome of feature creep, because when it comes to the notebook transcription, none of that can actually really be heard. I'll now play a snippet of it for everybody. Okay. So this is what the percussion sounds like. It's straight from the DAW. And it's way too detailed. These bars at the bottom represent velocity, how hard each note is being hit. You can see in some places it's still flat. That is area for that's room for improvement right there. And there's no way doing that would result in no change in the Notebook song, because you can't recreate those sounds that you just heard in note blocks, because we're provided with 3 percussion sounds: a kick, a snare, and a click. And a click isn't even like any of these standard kit elements. Like, it's just a sound. There were some creative uses of melodic instruments, which Vizian used, but that everything is seen here was really all for nothing when it comes to the event, and that still took multiple days. So working with deadlines is definitely a thing to be concerned about when it comes to composition and production, because that was just all for nothing. But with that, I'll hand off the actual transcription process to Vizian.
All right. So it is with that in mind, all the little details that you just heard in the percussion and moreover in the finished song, that it's clear why it took so long for me to transcribe it. It took me 2 weeks, and this is what I was looking at for 2 weeks. So this here is Noteblock Studio, of course. It's what we do. We do note blocks, and there are a lot of these little squares. These are all the note blocks. So the green ones, they're the top. Those are the double bass, and the brown ones are guitar. And so you can see here that there's a lot of brighter ones and darker ones, and that's because some are louder and some are quieter. So the brighter ones are louder, and the darker ones are quieter. And that is how I achieved all of the little effects in the percussion and in the actual melody of the song. So the sustains, right, making a note longer, reverb or echoes, things like that, it's not very easy to do that with note blocks because note blocks are just a sound, right? It's like do, and that's it. So what you have to do when working with note block music at the highest level is spam them. You have to spam them a lot. Yeah, see, do. And um, what ends up happening is you have a lot of note blocks, and when it comes to running that on the Smith Summit server, you have to be very cautious because I often hit the sound limit. And as a matter of fact, I had to do a lot of optimization in this song before shipping it off because it was like, I think it was almost 100 over the sound limit in sounds playing at the same time. So just a lot of note blocks playing at the same time. Yeah. Let's talk about some statistics. I mentioned this earlier. I think last panel I talked about some of the statistics, but I have them all laid out here. 76,000 note blocks. That's a lot of note blocks. That's the most that has ever played on the Smith Summit. I would love for us to have a higher polyphony so we could play more note block sounds, but it's okay. I could definitely do more than that if Mojang would increase the sound limit, but I don't care. It took around 30 hours of work in total to accomplish the transcription. There were 6 project files that I worked across. One of them had percussion. One of them had one of them was an unfinished version. One of them was a completely scrapped attempt. Yeah, that happens sometimes. Sometimes you think, oh, what a massive waste of time. I put in all this effort and I'm not happy with the outcome. But when you have to scrap things like that, usually you go into the next attempt with like a new idea or some new insight on how to improve from your mistake. And I'm very glad that I had that insight because otherwise I would not have been able to get it done in the next in those 2 weeks that I had. So I'm very glad to say that the song has officially been posted onto Noteblock World, which is our Noteblock song distribution website. And you can actually look it up right now. If you want to go onto Noteblock World, you can just type in Figurigamma and you'll see it there. I'm very happy. Do you like the graphic? I made this earlier today. Those are all note blocks in Noteblock Studio, formed into a sort of picture because they're all squares. So I use them as pixels to make a little picture. It says Figurigamma. It's very cool. And yeah, that's all I have to say. I think that's Ben, right?
Alrighty. So now that we've talked about the animation and the songs, now comes the part of playing these sounds inside Minecraft, which is a huge challenge, just like all the rest that we've seen here. So let's see, my slides work. Yes, let's talk about our playback system. And I'll talk a bit about the playback system in the context of Summit, but everything that I'm about to talk about is also related to the event because it uses the exact same playback system, and we'll see how that works in a second. When we first created the system for our last Summit, we had one goal in mind. We wanted every player to hear the same thing, just like a radio station. This would allow Summit visitors to vibe to the same music, no matter where they were in the world. We came with the idea of placing speakers all across the world. Curious created the amazing boombox model we used, and there we go. As an evolution of last year's system, we decided we wanted a different set of songs to play in each region: textured tropics, Spanish plateaus, and weathered woodlands. We ran a 2-week-long music jam in the Noteblock World community and had 52 songs, 53 actually, contributed by 27 different artists, which make up the Smith Summit 2026 soundtrack. Then it was a matter of adapting our previous system to work on one of multiple regions. The idea was to have 3 different playback systems running simultaneously, each routing a song to speakers at a region of the world. When placing speakers, the Summit team needed flexibility. they had to both cover large open areas, but also be able to navigate around narrow areas, precisely contouring neighboring booths to avoid overlaps. After all, we didn't want our music to be intrusive. But because each speaker multiplies the number of play sound commands running in a given tick, we had to keep speakers down to a minimum for performance reasons. To achieve the flexibility we needed then. To solve this, we came up with 3 speaker ranges, short, medium, and long, each with its own play sound parameters. So the sound only reached a certain configurable distance. Short range speaker play music in a 12 block radius, mid range speaker play at a 24 block radius, and long ranged ones reach 32 blocks. The speaker's region and range can be picked during placement, and this will determine what set of songs it plays and how far players are able to hear it. Basically, you can change the potency of the speaker, so to speak, and you can also tune into different stations, basically. So we effectively have 9 concurrent mini playback systems running continuously, looking up at what tick we are in the song and routing their notes to the right speakers. The good thing is, all regions and speaker ranges are data-driven and can be defined in a configuration file before the pack is exported. Thanks to this, we even considered having separate music just for Summit at some point. In fact, thanks to this flexibility, it was really easy to adapt the system to play music at Figurigamma. We made a very, very, very large invisible speaker that's sitting right on top of us here at this stage, and it plays music to everyone in the world. How did we make the different ranges work, though? Here, I'll bring an overview of how the play sound command works and how positional audio works in general in Minecraft Java Edition. In short, it's all controlled by 5 parameters: position, volume, min volume, distance, and pitch. We start with the position to play the sound at. That's easy. It's the position of the speaker. We offset the sounds a bit to the left and right of the speakers to create a stereo field based on each note's stereo panning value. Then the second most important parameter is volume. If your volume is set to 1.0, the default value, this means your sounds will be audible in a 16-block radius around the sound's origin. Some sounds override this. No blocks, for instance, use a volume of 3 for a 48-block audible range. So, in order to make a note play at 50% volume, you just need to set its volume to 0.5, right? Wrong! Due to how Minecraft positional audio works, decreasing the volume of a sound also shrinks its audible sphere. So setting the volume to 0.5 will make it audible in an 8-block radius. Players beyond this range, greater than 8 up to 16 blocks, will hear no sound at all. In real life, when you walk meters away from a speaker, you still hear all of a song's content, quote unquote, just at a slightly lower intensity. You'd expect Minecraft to behave the same, but, well, no, we have floating trees. What did you expect? No matter the way you define volume, whether in sounds.json and /playsound, there's no way to bypass this behavior natively in Minecraft. We could, of course, bake volume into different audio files, but this would both blow up resource spec size and limit our our expressiveness to the volume combos we had. Because song authors use dynamics to create sustain effects, echoes, and vibratos, most notes in modern NBS songs do not play at full volume. As a result, standing just a few blocks away from a speaker would make most of it disappear. This was no fun. You need to stand right beside a speaker in order to enjoy the soundtrack, instead of it behaving more like ambient music. This also distorted the author's intention. Songs would rapidly sound very different to how they were composed to sound as you walked around. This is where PlaySound's third parameter comes in, min volume. It determines a constant volume at which the sound will play for any player in the world located outside the song's normal audible sphere. How does that plug into our volume equation? Well, you can just set a min volume to a factor of the note's intended volume in Oblock Studio. This will make sure a toned down version of the note will always be heard by players who aren't close enough to the speakers to hear it. We actually applied this patch to Summit very recently, so you might hear our speakers have become more powerful. Well, voila. Except this also means anyone in the world, even players at the other side of the island, would be able to hear every sound coming from every speaker in the world. Boo! This is where our fourth shenanigan comes in, distance. Oh, can't go back. Using the distance parameter, we selectively target players, thank you, at a certain distance from the speaker, making sure they can only hear the notes close to them, even with the min volume parameter set. This even allows us to have a gradual fall-off distance based on the note's pitch. In real life, lower frequencies travel farther than higher frequencies due to the longer wavelength. We have created a similar effect in Summit. When approaching a speaker, if you notice closely, you start hearing bass notes first, with treble notes gradually coming up as you get closer to it. To achieve this, we compensated each note's pitch based on the octave shift of each note block instrument to get its effective pitch. Then we plugged it into a sigmoid function that calculates a fall-off factor for that note. Notes in the lower end of the pitch scale have a higher distance value, traveling up to the full range of the speaker. Higher notes on the other range only reach closer to it. The result, speakers feel just like when you're approaching a live event or festival in real life. PlaySound's fifth parameter, pitch. I think we're missing a slide here, but that will do. Pitch is the last ingredient. It's defined as a factor of the sound's original speed. 0.5 plays it at half speed, which shifts it. 0.5 plays it at half speed, which shifts it 1 octave below its original pitch, while 2.0 plays it twice as fast, shifting it 1 octave higher. We even account for fine pitch tuning, which lets musicians play microtonal notes, which lie between the keys of a piano. Vision used a bunch of these in this performance to create glissandos and pitch bends. But there's a caveat. You can only pitch shift a sound an octave below or above its original key. Most songs in NBS these days use a range of 10 octaves, not 2. How do we get around this? Well, we must manually pitch shift the sounds 2 octaves down or up, add them to the resource pack, and wrap the note's pitch to fall within the 2 octave range again. Doing this just twice for each sound lets us cover a range of 6 octaves. As another improvement from last Summit, we dynamically generate the octave variants used in the set of songs you're exporting. This way, even a single byte of resource pack space goes to waste. This is not limited to the 20 staple note block sounds, but also supports the entire set of sounds from vanilla Minecraft. That's why you can hear some explosions, experience orbs, and delays across Summit's soundtrack. We have not used custom instruments for Figurigamma, but you can hear it in Summit's soundtrack. The community can be quite creative in the sounds they use. All of these 5 numbers are packed into a set of parameters that we plug into many thousand PlaySound commands in order to encode a song. With our 3 speaker ranges and 53 songs, which play 746,669 notes across 98,313 ticks, this amounts to 2,247 /PlaySound commands powering Summit's soundtrack. When it came the time to load this into Minecraft, we would have a 140 megabyte pack with 87,000 folders and 350,000 function files. No matter how powerful every computer that tried to load this in would have Minecraft instantly freeze upon opening the world. It was just way too many functions for it to parse. The solution? World storage. We bake the note data into a giant NBT file, copy it manually to the world folder, then at playback time, we inject that data into a set of macro templates containing a certain number of /PlaySound commands. To generate these templates, we count the number of notes played in each tick across all of the songs and stores all of the values that we see. For each of them, we generate a macro template containing exactly that amount of PlaySound command slots. For Summit's soundtrack, that number is 55. So we have 55 macro templates, one running one play sound command, another running two play sound commands, then 3, then 4, all the way up to 55. For Figurigamma, this number is 58. Its busiest tick is busier than all of the songs played in Summit. Hooray! When it's time to play a tick, we load its play sound data into a temporary storage, pass it to the write template function, and voila, the sounds play. Rinse and repeat for our 3 speaker ranges times 3 regions, and we do this 9 times every tick to cover it all. Thanks to this optimization, our data pack is now 119 kilobytes, and our resource pack just 503 kilobytes. All the song data complexity lies within world storage, which is not parsed or analyzed until we read from it during playback. All the credit for this optimization goes to RX97. Thank you so much for all the help. Even with our load time optimization, all of this data is still taking too long to export. The first version of it took 1 hour and 30 minutes to compile on my machine. This, of course, was unsuitable with all the in-game tests we needed to make. RX and I spent some time adding parallelism to the export. It can be backed both by the multi-threading module, if you're using a free-threaded version of Python, or the multi-processing module, if you're running a version with the GIL enabled. We parallelized everything, pitch-shifting vanilla sounds, rendering note data in storage, encoding NBT files per region for storage, and writing it to disk. All of this brought our export time from 1 hour 30 minutes to, drumroll, 30 seconds. Yes, we compiled 2 million play sound commands for 53 songs in less than 30 seconds. For Figurigamma, the export time currently sits at 3 seconds. Just the song, not the animation, of course, but that's a whole different beast. And that's how you're able to hear this whimsical song in Minecraft today. In case you'd like to take a deeper dive into how all of the playback system works, all of the code that powers our music playback system is, just like last time, available on GitHub at github.com/OpenNBS. Feel free to inspect it, adapt it to your own projects, or even use it to create your own animated note block performance. Wink. And that's it for the playback system. Well, I'd like to take the opportunity to thank Encode42, Vision, Fetchbot, and Azagwen for making this entire performance possible, as well as Snavesedit and Yanis for the assistant in optimizing performance. It's pretty wild to be writing history on top of this stage, and this was only possible due to y'all's sheer dedication, persistence, and stubbornness to keep pushing the limits to make this happen, even when our tools wanted otherwise. We also thank RX, Curious, and the entire Summit team for the unprecedented support in making our playback system in this very event come to life, and for giving us a spot at Summit. We're really grateful for being in this event and among some of the best data packers and map makers in Minecraft's community. If you'd like to support what we do, you can donate to OpenNBS at Open Collective or GitHub sponsors. Any amount of supports helps us keep making note blocks awesome to all Minecraft players. And that's a wrap. If you all want to add anything else, feel free to do so. And we'll also run the performance a couple more times so you can inspect it closer, right? In code.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Definitely. This, by far, just would not have been possible without everybody on stage here, including RX. Everybody just had such a pivotal role. It just, when I first pitched the idea to RX at the beginning of the summit, I truly didn't know how we were actually going to make it happen. And then I met Fetchbot and Azza through this event. And I mean, yeah, of course, without them, this just wouldn't have happened. So I'm incredibly grateful for everybody, all the sacrifices everybody made in order to get this thing made. Did anybody else want to chip in, or are we ready to start rerunning?
Oh,
I'll
Yeah.
I'll quickly add, if you've seen the globes around Summit, or if you've looked at your advancement menu, do check out all the artists on Noteblock World. Um, this would have been possible with all their work, and that's what brings all the ambiance to Summit Island. If you've looked at the Smith or OpenNBS YouTube channel for 2024, there was an upload of the soundtrack in its full glory, and that should be making its way again, so look out for that as well. But I just want to shout out all the musicians that made Summit what it is.
Yeah, Noteblock World is our platform launched in 2024 where everyone can share, discover, and listen to Noteblock music. Pretty soon, you'll be able to hear it on the website. And you can find over 3,000 songs from the Noteblock community uploaded over 2 years. And including all of the Summit soundtrack. It's all there, and soon you'll be able to hear it as well. Figurigamma was also uploaded to Noteblock World as Encode mentioned. And soon we'll have even more songs there. So make sure to visit noteblock.world to figure out what the Noteblock community is up to if you'd like to see more creations like you've seen here at the summit.
Yeah. And unless anybody wants to chip in again, here's what we're going to do. So we're going to rerun the show normally one more time. It's normal playback. Normal playback. Afterwards, we'll do a very short Q&A pertaining to specifically the animation, because right after that we're going to break the barriers and everybody will be able to come up on stage. We're going to rerun it again. We're going to be able to just come up here and mingle with the instruments as they perform. So for now, we return to the audience, and you won't be able to see the credits because the presentation is there, but actually the Summit team will figure it out while it's playing. Let's go back to the audience. And there it is.
There we go.
Currently building a bridge.
Some people cried in the audience. That is so wholesome to hear.
While the bridge is being built, we will collect a few questions. I won't be able to answer them all at once, but go ahead and type in chat. Make sure to prefix your question with a Q so that we know what to look for. Just like that, just like Vizian. Preferably an uppercase Q, but it doesn't really matter. I would like to also mention, because I realized I didn't really mention it in the slide, that while my username right now is in code 42, this composition is released under my musical alias Aurora, Aurora, and this song will be released at some point in the future, both its note block form and its traditional form. You can hear it right now in my Discord server. Another subtle plug.
Again, I have posted the no block version to No Block World, so you can download it or listen to it there if you'd like. Yep.
Also, just like last year, Summit's soundtrack will also be available on YouTube. If you'd like to follow that through there, in a few weeks we'll upload it and you'll be able to enjoy it anywhere.
Yep. I'll get on top of some of these questions right now. What software did you use to make the original music? I used Bitwig Studio. I love Bitwig. It runs natively on Linux if you're a Linux user. Used a bunch of plugins such as Arturia Pigments. The percussion plugin is BFD3. I don't know if I would recommend BFD3 unless you get it on good sale. There might be better options, but it's what I use. It's actually what Chris Christodoulou of the Risk of Rain soundtrack uses. Therefore, I followed, thinking that I could make percussion like him as well. Yeah. Will there be more note block projects like this in the future? And related questions, will there be more performances like this in the future? We'd like to. We definitely like to. For next summit, when we have more time to plan, more time to execute, we hope to do something like this again in the future. Even bigger next time.
And more experience as well, because it will not be the first time making something like this.
Yes, definitely.
Ever.
And hopefully with a little bit more lead time as well.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
Any
more questions?
I think we got a couple in here.
We will be both releasing the original track and we'll also be editing this performance down to an music style music video. And we'll also upload the panel edited as well, of course. Yeah. That's an interesting question. What is the ticks per second of the song in Noteblock Studio?
Okay.
This was a blunder on my part at first. For
It's okay.
some reason, I had assumed or believed, I don't know if I heard it somewhere, I believed that 13.33 ticks per second could be quantized into 20 ticks per second without issue. I don't care for math, so I just didn't even think about it. So I composed the song in 200 beats per minute. Yeah.
Yes.
Now,
yes, you did.
13.33 does not quantize into 20 ticks per second. So we still composed it Vizian still transcribed it into 13.33, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And then
in Noteblock Studio, it's 200 BPM, but we had to quantize it to 20 ticks per second so that it could be played on here.
Yeah.
And I actually talk a bit about how we did that, because that's also part part of the playback system, but basically quantizing, you round to the nearest tick. So at 13.33 ticks per second, if you do the math, it ends up with a tick factor of 1.5. So it's like you play 2 ticks, skip 1, and at the end, even if the ticks will not play exactly at their intended time, at the end the song will have the same length, basically. So that's what we do. We actually considered, we talked with the Summit team if we could run the server at 27 ticks per second, but this would have more problems than it was worth. And in the end, you don't even notice that it was quantized, which is a good thing.
Network latency is more of an issue than the quantization would ever be.
And sound limit, there are other issues that are more noticeable than this.
What was the easiest thing and the hardest thing? For me personally, the easiest thing was coming up with the structure of the song. I had it in my head already. It was there. The song existed in my mind. The hardest thing was turning that into something you could actually listen to, because in my mind it sounded all big and grand and complete, and then you start placing down the notes and you're like, there's nothing here. What was I thinking? And then through a few restarts, if you saw the if you remember the slide with the exported files, there was event 1, event 2, and event 3, and for each one I restarted from scratch. And eventually I ended up with the thing that I had imagined. Anybody else can answer this question too.
Yeah, I'd love to jump in on this one as kind of an observer to a lot of the creative work being done. I think that, like, from where I stand, the hardest part was definitely dealing with kind of pushing this boundary on how far we can go with tools before they just start catastrophically failing. And having to figure out how to work around that when we that started happening at a point where we couldn't really easily divest into like multiple animated Java rigs or multiple models. We were kind of locked into this one Giga model.
Yeah, I'd like to get my word in as well. So on the no block side, the easiest thing was probably adding some of the effects, because I enjoyed it the most. It's what I'm used to as an original musician. I'm used to diving deep into crafting the sounds of the note blocks, not so much transcribing from a different song. So that was definitely the easier part. The harder part was getting the percussion right. You might remember the slide that Encode showed with like, it was like a gray screen with all these like white lines everywhere. That was the percussion. And what I ended up doing was manually taking a MIDI file of that percussion, and I had to extract every single individual instrument from that MIDI file and then create, I guess, instruments, so to speak, by combining different note blocks to replicate the sounds of those instruments. That took forever, and that was definitely the hardest part of the transcription of the song.
And I composed the whole thing to be comprised entirely of MIDI events, so that we could export a MIDI for reference. Now, did you use the MIDI import feature, or?
So the MIDI import feature did not help me. Well, it kind of did, but I had to write a Python script using PyNBS, which is a library created by Ben Troen that allows anyone to manipulate NoteBlock Studio songs with Python. So I had to write a Python script to extract some of the data from the MIDI because it was all sort of jumbled up, and it was very difficult to work with at face value. So I needed that script.
Yeah,
Python is great.
As we learned, Bitwig's MIDI export feature, I mean, it works, but it's quite rudimentary.
Yeah.
The export had no instrument data, had no automation, not even like basic parameters. I think it only
Yeah.
used the velocity.
Yeah, and I wrote multiple Python scripts for use in this song to create sorts of effects that aren't available in NoteBlock Studio. I'm at that point of making NoteBlock music where NoteBlock Studio doesn't have all the tools that I need. So unfortunately, as you know, I'm going to contribute to the project, of course, to help develop it. But right now, I have to create my own tools in order to create the kind of music I want to make. A good example would be the Figurigamma image that is shown on the NoteBlock World page. I wrote a script to create a gradient of note blocks across layers so that it could be viewed. Oh yeah, here we go. We can get it up here. It was a little further. And here we go. Look at that. It's so smooth, isn't it? So I wrote a Python script to place note blocks at random positions at each layer with a bias depending on which, a bias based on which layer it was at, so that the lower layers would be darker and the higher layers would be brighter. I think this uses the trumpets, chimes, iron xylophones, and harps, and it creates this really, really cool effect. The text I did manually. The text I kept clicking on the screen to place note blocks. So that is all manual. That took me like an hour and a half, but it definitely came out pretty well. So I'm proud of it. Another good example would be some of the fade outs at the end of the song. NoteBlock Studio only ships with a linear fade, so the volume decreases at a set interval over time. What I needed was a fade where it would quiet down really quickly in the beginning and then start to quiet down slower over time so that you could still hear it, but it was kind of like fading away rather than just disappearing. I can't really, you'd have to listen to it to kind of understand what I'm saying. But yeah, it's an ease out. So I had to write a script to do that. It can do ease in as well. So yeah, I love the position I'm in where I can combine music and code to create my projects. And I actually wrote my my college essay on this, and that's what got me into university this year. So, yeah.
Awesome. And this is why I'm writing a master's thesis in computer music. It's cool as heck.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I also want to talk about a bit about the MIDI thing, right? Because both Bitwig can export to MIDI and NBS can import from MIDI, but as with all translation, it's not perfect. There will be necessarily differences in how you represent things in a DAW versus NBS, which is also a DAW, but a different kind of DAW. And of course, this means even if we had like perfect lossless MIDI NBS conversion, you would still lose something because note blocks cannot represent everything you can represent in Bitwig. So that's the thing with cover songs. When you create an original song, it's one thing, but making a cover of it and making it sound faithful and creatively overcoming the limitations of the medium you're working with is a skill in and of itself, right? So you got to be so creative. It's not just transcribing the notes. It's also being creative with how you choose to represent them and what effects and what resources, right? What tools you use in your repertoire of tools and techniques to represent the song. And it is, when you hear both versions, you play Figurigamma like out of Bitwig and you hear Figurigamma out of NBS, they're just two works of art. One is like a cover of the other, but you can appreciate so much that's unique to each of the tracks, even though one is a cover of the other one. And I recommend you all to like listen to both of them once they're out and just appreciate the details that went into each of the songs. It's so amazing.
Yeah, I like to think of myself as a note block purist when it comes to making my music, because I really don't use any custom instruments, so I don't incorporate any other sounds. I like to stay faithful to the 20 instruments that there are. I think now it's 20 because of the trumpets. So everything you heard, Figurigamma, that is, those were all just regular note block sounds. So yeah, I think it's a fun challenge, and I always like making actually note block music, right? It's, if I say I'm gonna make a note block song, it's gonna be a note block song. Not to say I haven't used other sounds before, but I like the challenge of committing to the soundscape of just note blocks. That's what we do. We're, well, not just note blocks, but we're Note Block Studio, Note Block World.
Will we be making
And-
cover songs again?
Oh, yeah, that's I don't know about, maybe I will.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
And
really
yeah,
jumped into
so-
the deep end by
Definitely.
by having Figurigamma be my first cover song.
Yeah. But you got it done and it sounds great. And both the note block song and traditional song will be released. They'll be on your streaming service of choice, most likely, once they're ready. We're not quite ready to release those yet, but they will be. And again, in the meantime, you can listen to the demo on my Discord server, aurora.live. And yeah, for any remaining questions, some of us will stick around at the Noteblock Studio booth, which is right there, actually. We're right next to it. So if you have any lingering questions, then you'll want to go there. And I think we're ready to open up the stage and do one more play.
Open the floodgates. Or the figure gates, should I say.
Yeah. All right. Give you all a few minutes to, well, not a few minutes, a few seconds to siphon in, and I'll get it started. Oh, and we'll also need the screen killed again.
It's gonna be loud near the stage.
Oh yeah, you'll be able to hear all the details.
Thank you all for coming.
That was awesome. It sounds so
Thank
much
you.
cooler on stage.
Thank you, everyone.
That
This
concludes.
has been a experience.
Yes,
That was
concludes-
Figurigamma.
that concludes Figurigamma. Now look behind you.
Oh no, it's Amy Stan. She's coming to get you all.
And she got them.
All right. Well, thanks everyone for joining us for Figurama. This was the last Summit event for Summit 2026. We have just the closing ceremony that will be happening in approximately 16 hours, 14 hours. If I can do my math, I can't.
It sounds like 14, I think.
14, yeah, something like that. So enjoy Summit till then. We'll have some fun festivities for the closing ceremony and a lot of fun stats to share. I've been compiling stats behind the scenes, and there's some crazy numbers. So, yeah, everyone enjoy themselves. I'll be taking down the stream, and I'll see you at the closing ceremony. Take care, everyone. Thank you so much for the NBS team for getting this all going.
Thank you for having
Our
us.
pleasure.
And thank you for listening.